bookish besties, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having an amazing day. It is officially March, which means a few things are coming up, including my February recap, and then it is almost spring now, so you're going to see my spring TBR coming up soon as well. But for today, we're talking about something really important, which is Women's History Month, which is when we honor all of the amazing contributions women have made that have often been overlooked in history. And while I absolutely encourage learning about women in politics, activism, science, art, all of that, today we're going to be talking about the women that have shaped me through literature. These are women, both fictional and real, whose ambition, rage, softness, intellect, wisdom, all of those things shape the way I think, read, and move through the world. Also, I did not factor in nationality just because it is National Women's Day. I just focused on the impact that these women have made for me. So let's get into it. I've split this video up into different sections, so this first section is fictional women in academia. I love academics and I feel like my education has made such a big impact on me, but we all know that being a woman in academia versus a man in academia is a very different experience. So these are some women characters that I feel really represented that for me. From A Study in Drowning by Reid, we have Effie. This book gave us a heroine who is navigating mythology, academia, and grief while in a world that's trying to actively silence her. What I like about Effie here is the quiet defiance of her persistence, and the refusal to be erased in intellectual spaces. Effie's character feels like a love letter to women who have had to work twice as hard to be heard in the same spaces as men. Next, from Babel from R.F. Kuang, we have Victoire. Babel is a very diverse and very deep story about colonialism and power and things like that, and you see that through the racism, through the inequality of genders, and I think for me, Victoire's character very much symbolizes that space for women in academia, and it is a very sad experience, but Victoire is so strong throughout it. This story is sharp and uncomfortable and something you really have to sit through, but I think Victoire's character is so intelligent and politically aware, and she's not written to be likable, but to be real, and I really enjoy that about her character. Another one by R. Kuang we have from Katabasis, Alice. Katabasis explores descent both literally and emotionally, and I love the way Alice is allowed to have her rage, to have her complexity, and to feel all the things that she does feel while also being a student. She's a brilliant character, and she's not just shows her strength, but all of her dimensions to her. Next up will be nonfiction women writers. And these women have written about the world in a way that makes me feel so much more connected to it. First up is Sy Montgomery. Her writing about nature feels very relevant and curious. She approaches animals and ecosystems with empathy, not dominance, and she reminds me how powerful curiosity can be. The next woman nonfiction author we have is Amy Nezuko Matahil, the author of World of Wonders. World of Wonders is lyrical, intimate, and full of natural imagery woven with her own personal history. This book celebrates identity, belonging, and the magic of the natural world. The next author up is Katie Holton, who made The Language of Trees. The Language of Trees completely changed the way I look at trees and language. It is a beautiful collection of both art and science and storytelling in such a powerful way. You guys probably know by now that I'm a very big nature and sustainability person, and so I think books like this are very important to be published to help keep us all aware of what we're doing to our planet and just protecting it. The next up author will be Brianna West, and she is the author of 101 Essays That Will Change the Way You Think, and When You're Ready, This Is How You'll Feel. I think both of her books feel like a best friend giving you advice rather than connections that sometimes with nonfiction and self-help books feel very hard to grasp because it just doesn't have that feeling of someone who cares about you and is trying to make you feel better. And her books, they do feel like that. On top of that, I just think they're very powerful things that she's saying, things that help keep you intentional and make sure you're focused on the life you want and things like that. I just feel it's just important to have a reminder at any time. So I keep those books on my shelf, easy to grab whenever I need it. The next author I want to mention is Patricia Kaishine, the author of Forest Euphoria. Force Euphoria blends together science, identity, queerness, and ecology in a way that just really makes you feel seen and also just is very powerful of a story. It's bold and thoughtful and celebrates curiosity without apology. Next up are some fiction authors I adore. These are women whose literature has not just entertained me but has shaped my entire reading life and my life as it is. We'll start with R.F. Kuang because when I think of fearless storytelling, she is the first to come to mind. Her work is political, intellectual, and unapologetically sharp. She doesn't soften the edges of history, but wants you to sit in that discomfort and really question these systems in place, the governments, the academia, and even just the stories we tell ourselves. She writes very ambitious women who are allowed to be flawed and angry and intellectual and ambitious, and it's just enlightening to see these characters feel so unapologetically themselves, and it is a very strong thing to see in the media. Next up would be Ava Reid, and she is one of my favorite authors. She is so good at writing atmosphere and putting you in these lush settings. But more than that, she writes about women who are in oppressive systems, who have their quiet defiance and their strength throughout that. Her heroines often feel isolated, whether emotionally or intellectually, and I love that she writes women who aren't afraid to claim that space in those atmospheres without apologies. Next up would be Adeline Grace. I think she's also really good at atmosphere and creating that type of cinematic storytelling. But on top of that, I really love the way her characters, her female characters want. They aren't afraid to go after their desires and they are bold in those things. It's very powerful to see a woman who just is comfortable saying, I want things. I want power, ambition. I want money. I want it's just nice to be able to have those characters that are unafraid to seem like they need more out of life. Next up will be Tahereh Mafi, and her writing is poetical and beautiful, but more than that, I really loved in the Shatter Me series, our main character, she is emotional, she is powerful as well, but I love the way that her emotions and her sensitivity and softness isn't framed as a weakness, but actually a very big part of her that helps with what she does. And I think it's beautiful to have a character that embraces that softness and feels like their femininity isn't a weakness to them. Next up is Rebecca Ross from the Divine Rivals and Wild Reverence book series. I haven't read anything else by her, but what I do know from these is that our characters are allowed, the female characters are allowed to be ambitious and strong while also containing all of that empathy and care. In the same way as Tahereh Mafi, that they are allowed to be powerful and also soft and caring. I really like those characters for that. I also think her books are a little bit more romantic towards it, but it is just so nice to embrace that soft like emotions towards it. And I do think that her characters are ambitious and it's just really nice. I don't know how else to explain what I'm trying to say, but I like her characters a lot. All of these women create worlds that feel intentional and textured, and it reminds me that fiction and fantasy, they're not just escapism, they're also mirrors of our lives. Next up are some fictional women characters. These are characters that have stayed with me long after I closed the book. We start, of course, with Aelin from Throne of Glass series. Aelin is strategic, dramatic, and brilliant, but more than that, more than anything, I think what I admire the most about her is her endurance. Aelin survives loss, betrayal, so much, honestly, from the beginning, torture, and I think throughout that you keep thinking that there's no way she's going to keep getting up. She's not going to be this strong that she's going to be able to keep moving forward. But she keeps fighting not just for herself but for her people, and it is so beautiful and powerful to see. Aelin is resilience personified, and she reminds me that leadership doesn't have to mean being fearless. It just means having the ability to move forward anyways. Next up is Juliet from the Shatter Me series. Juliet's character arc is one of my favorite arcs ever. She starts as this person who fears herself, fears her body, her power, all of that, and we get to see her reclaiming her power and redefining her identity and choosing who she wants to be, and it is a deeply powerful arc to see. Her story is about self-acceptance as much as it is about strength. The next female character we have is Alexis from Blood of Hercules. Alexis is a very strong character, but she's also funny. She's witty. She's just someone so like lovable as a best friend. Like I would want her as a best friend. But on top of that, she's just as much as she knows her weaknesses and she knows she's not always capable of the same things. She has so much trauma she's gone through, and she is enduring it. She is working through and moving forward in a world that keeps trying to put her down. And I think she is a very strong statement to women that, like, yeah, people are going to be mean to you. People are not going to give you the same ups they'll give other people. And she just finds a way to persevere anyways. And I think that's a beautiful statement to have in a character. Next up, we have Iris from Divine Rivals. And I've kind of already talked about her character by talking about the author, but she is gentle. She is someone who likes to write and hope, and yet she contains so much strength in persevering, and she's just such a powerful character for her to embrace that softness and romanticism to her. It is really nice to see. And finally, for my fictional women characters, I have Melano from Fable for the End of the World. Melano is a character who is very complex. She is very morally ambiguous. You don't know whether she's really can be classified as a villain or a hero, but I think I love the way it embraces that she's allowed to be complicated, and she's honestly just such a lovable character in my eyes, and she's morally gray, and I would recommend reading it to get your own experience of it, but I just think that had a big impact on me to see a character who is powerful, but is more vague in the lines of more moralness. On top of that, I think for all these characters actually, but I feel like there's something so freeing about seeing a female character who's allowed to exist outside of purity and perfection and always being like weak. And now we move on to my final category, which is female poets who have significantly impacted me. I think poetry for me is where women have most often directly told the truth, whether quietly or explosively. We'll start with Emily Dickinson, who is my favorite poet of all times, and I think she is quiet, radical, and so ahead of her time. Emily Dickinson wrote about death, fate, longing so much, and it all feels so intimate, and most of her work wasn't even published during her time alive. I think there is something so powerful in a woman who is unafraid to write like this so boldly, even though it's in private. It is the fact that she recognizes that her words deserve to exist even if it is not ready to hear them. Next up will be Maria Popova from The Universe in Verse. The Universe in Verse is a beautiful intersection of science and poetry, and it uplifts women's voices in a field that has never really fully recognized the contributions of women. The book celebrates curiosity, intellect, and wonder. It feels very expansive and like poetry belongs everywhere. Next up, we have Nikita Gill, the author of The Girl and the Goddess, and she reclaims mythology and femininity in such a powerful way. She writes about rage, healing, sisterhood, so much, honestly, and she writes it in a way that feels like such a modern feminism take, while also reclaiming old mythology stories to, like, change it. And those are all the women I am honoring today, though I'm sure there are many, many more to honor in my life and everyone's life, but that is who I've decided to go with for today. Women in literature have always existed, even when they were pushed to the margins. They wrote under pseudonyms, they were pushed out of academia, and yet they persisted and they kept going to make such beautiful works. These women, fictional and real, shaped how I feel about rage and grief and intellect and softness and just being a woman in society. So this Women's History Month, I encourage you to read a book by a woman you've never read before, revisit a classic written by a woman, or just reflect on the women who have shaped you. Let me know down in the comments, who is a woman in literature that has shaped your life? I'd love to know. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you did. And until next time, happy reading.